Did you know that hemp and marijuana are the same thing? Okay, they're not. But some states are trying to say that they are. Hey, I'm Morgan Davis. I'm a cannabis attorney in Raleigh, North Carolina. Let's talk about how to keep your business protected and thriving. So in terms of chemistry, biology, all the things that we've talked about, maybe hemp and marijuana, which by the way, you all know I hate that word, so I'm now going to start using cannabis, but hemp and regulated cannabis biologically could be the same thing. But I'm a lawyer. We're not going to talk about that. Go see a scientist. Legally, they are not the same thing. What differentiates them? Well, at the federal level, what differentiates them is the 0.3% delta-9 THC by dry weight. If you are below that, it's hemp. If you are above that, it's marijuana by the federal definitions. Now, some states, in response to the growing amount of intoxicating hemp products in the market that are unregulated on the federal level and therefore have, in their mind, run amok, are instead of continuing to fight the battle and trying to regulate them separately, are just pulling them into their regulated cannabis market. What does that mean? That means in states like Connecticut, Vermont, Michigan, Washington, Maryland, Minnesota, Alaska, hemp products that have previously been able to be sold out of the regulated market on their own are now being pulled into the regulated market and essentially are being told they are cannabis if they are above a certain THC limit or they contain a certain THC. For example, in Alaska, as of November 3rd, Alaska implemented new regulations which say you can no longer have THC products or hemp products that contain delta-8 or delta-9 THC in the regular market. You can sell some of them through the dispensary market, meaning through their medical marijuana market or adult use market. So essentially we are saying now in Alaska that hemp products that contain certain THCs are not hemp, they are cannabis. Same thing in Connecticut. Connecticut has changed their law where above a certain amount of THC per individual serving or package serving, it is no longer hemp, it is cannabis, and therefore regulated in Connecticut's adult use market. This trend is interesting because it essentially is saying that for these states, hemp and cannabis are no longer a thing. All they care about is THC content. That for them, it falls down to how much THC is in a product. Whether or not that's going to stand is an interesting question because technically the federal definition of hemp and marijuana is one thing, and now these states are saying it's something else. Arkansas tried to do a similar thing recently and ban pretty much all delta-8 products and a huge portion of their hemp market. Federal Circuit Court judge issued a TRO and said, you can't use a more restrictive definition than the federal government. You can't, if hemp is one thing according to the federal government, you can't say it's something different. And isn't that essentially what these states are doing? Now, nobody's made that argument yet, so we'll be watching. However, both Maryland and Alaska are already experiencing litigation over this issue. So in both states, industry stakeholders in the hemp industry of both Maryland and Alaska have filed a lawsuit to stop the state from implementing these programs, which essentially would mean either that the hemp businesses had to shut down or they would have to comply with regulated cannabis regulations. If anybody's been in the regulated cannabis market, that's a huge undertaking. Very expensive, requires a lot of infrastructure, a lot of standard operating procedures, and quite a bit of money. So, understandably, industry stakeholders on the hemp side don't want to do that. In Maryland, a judge has granted a temporary restraining order and stop on the implementation of the state program. So for right now, hemp businesses can continue to operate while the courts figure out where they're going to fall with implementing Maryland's program. Alaska's regulations only went into effect November 3rd. Today's November 9th. The lawsuit from the Alaska businesses was filed yesterday or the day before. So we don't know yet how the courts are going to rule in Alaska. No challenge has happened in Connecticut, Vermont, Michigan, Washington, or Minnesota that I can see yet. Now, I should point out Minnesota did something different where they have bifurcated their system. So they now have a high THC and a low THC program. Low THC is 5 milligrams of THC per serving or less. High THC is anything above that. But similar to these other states, the focus is no longer on hemp versus marijuana or hemp versus cannabis. It's on the amount of THC. So if you're a company trying to produce a national product and sell in as many states as possible, this trend is worrisome because it means that as of this week at least, you can't sell your products in Alaska right now. Now, maybe you're saying, well, I don't really sell that many products in Alaska anyway. How big of a deal is that? But what it goes to show you is this happened overnight. The regulations were introduced, I believe, in October in Alaska, and they came into effect in November. Of these other states who've implemented these regulations, they happened in a matter of months. So this landscape changes very, very quickly, which means as a company, you need to not only understand the landscape in your own state, but if you've got a national brand, a nationally distributed brand, you've got to understand the landscape in all 50 states. Is your head spinning? It's understandable. If you are selling a national product or even a product in, let's say, more than 10 states, you need to have a compliance team. If you don't have a compliance team, you need to outsource that to a lawyer or another legal team that can help you do that. You're not selling laser cut wood Christmas trees on Etsy, right? You're selling a product that in some places opens you up to criminal and civil liability. And that changes really quickly. So the idea that you could stay on top of this on your own is impossible. We'd love to help you. Give us a call.